What do you do when you realize you didn't buy enough beautiful linen to make your Irish Lena, which requires about 5 yards? You go on to Project 2. Hi everybody. Oh my goodness, so it's midnight. I have been trying to put my linen pants pattern together, and I've never tried to do a pattern, well, a sewing pattern from a PDF before. Maybe a long time ago. Back when it was like dot matrix sprocket printers. I might have done that back then. But it's taken me, oh my gosh, way longer than it should have to put this pattern together. I don't know what I'm thinking. I have this beautiful, like, huge table, if you look behind me. Beautiful, huge table, but as you can see, it's like covered with things right now. I'm trying to organize my paperwork, and I haven't been able to spend any time at it, so it's not getting done. but then yeah, so I started to do the lovely PDF pattern, and I decided I could do this while I'm watching TV. Yeah, good luck with that. Anyway, it's not on a flat surface now, so it is rather more bumpy than it's actually laying fairly flat on the floor, but oh my gosh, what a waste of time. That's what I get for being cheap and buying something as a PDF thinking it would be faster. Anyway, but they're fairly simple linen pants. I'm really actually getting more and more excited about these because the line I think is going to be nice. But and I tried a pair on today at play rehearsal actually that were very similar to what I'm going to be making, and they were delightful. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, nice. And I had no Scotch tape, so I was using packing tape, which also helped a lot with the final result of the pattern. But anyway, it's rather bumpy. We'll do more later. So I've been watching some historic reconstruction types of videos lately, and they had this very nice tool, which I looked at and thought I could make me one of those. Basically what it does, I'll show you here, is it helps you mark the seam allowances or hems on your garments, and it's got several different distances. Very handy. It's made out of, the ones I saw were actually made out of plastic or wood, but I thought I could make one of those just out of manila folder. So I started to look at a piece of paper and sketch it out, and yeah, that didn't work. So after that, I cut a bunch of stuff out of a bunch of pieces of paper. And then I cut this out, and it was just not working at all. And so I did a little mock-up and then marked it out on a piece of paper and came up with this cool little cheap version of the tool. Next, I realized I really do need a thimble, and I had this old glove laying around. So I just chopped off one of the fingers of my glove. This pair has seen better days. And it fits perfectly because I've worn these gloves forever. and it's a perfect thimble. So now I realized I needed to get down to business and actually start sewing, and I haven't done any hand sewing for a while, and I never felt like I was very good at it. So I've been looking at this book, Household Sewing with Home Dressmaking, which is basically a reprint of an old manual for hand sewing. And it shows exactly how to do multiple stitches, and so I started to look at doing the running stitch. And I love this book. The rule for the running stitch is that the amount taken up on the needle should correspond exactly to the space left or passed over between each of these two amounts. Taking up 2 threads and passing over 2. Yeah, I don't know that 2 threads is actually going to work that well for me. Anyway, passing over 2. Yeah. Being the common regulation. And for very fine materials, increase the threads to 3 or even 4. Yeah, so that didn't happen. 2 threads is not happening. So what I did do though was I took my handy dandy tool and I marked off my seam allowance, and with my handy dandy glove thimble I started to sew a running back stitch, which basically you do a running stitch and then every now and then you take a little back stitch to help secure the seam. This is a nice edge. The linen does fray a little bit though, so there's my running back stitch. And then after a bit I trimmed one side of that seam and then folded it over and did a felled seam, which do a little whip stitch along the edge. And I'm trying to get better about doing that in a small scale, but it's not working very well. So anyway, I'll show you a little bit about how I'm doing that. You take a tiny stitch into the outside fabric and you're just barely catching 1 or 2 threads here, and it's a little bit tricky. So actually I find that I can feel it a little bit better rather than looking at it. So if I can put it in and then pull that needle back a little bit until I just have a couple threads on that edge, it works a lot better. Here are my pieces cut out and the 2 side seams finished with the running back stitch and the fell. And I'm not very good at this, so it did pucker just a little bit on the right side, and on the wrong side it looks actually pretty neat. So I have never been very proud of my hand stitching, but this is giving me a good chance to get a lot of practice. And here I realized that I had actually sewn one set of pairs the wrong way together, and here I'm just taking out some of the stitches. And because I'm using white thread on a brown ground, I can actually see my stitches quite well. I can go back and take them out. I can evaluate how neat and tidy my stitches are, and they're not really going to show on the right side of the fabric, so I felt like that was a good trade-off. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now, and I'm not finished, so I will be back with part 2.